So Ted Cruz had a conversation with Tucker Carlson, and it got so fascinating. I already covered part of this, but it gives us an interesting glimpse into Ted Cruz's viewpoint on Israel. Just give this a listen.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
He's talking specifically about his reason for supporting the Iran war.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel.
And as you'll find out in a second, there is no distinction between the two in Ted Cruz's mind. They are identical.
So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my. You pull out
The tip of your what?
the phone and use the.
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it. And you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology. I'm confused.
I love that, dude. Yeah. The fact is, it's evangelical theology. It's part of evangelical theology. You must support Israel at any cost, no matter what. Even though Israel of today is absolutely insane. Their minds are gone over there, okay? Some crazy, insane number of people think that the news should cover less of Gazan suffering. For example, 64% of Israelis, quote unquote, see no need for more reporting on Gazans suffering. For example, 41% of those polled by Hebrew University's Accord Center said reports on local channels 12 and 13 were biased in favor of Palestinians in Gaza. 64% believe there are no innocent people in the enclave. No innocent people, even children. Reporters and editors at Israel's major news outlets have admitted more than once, especially in private conversations, that their employers haven't allowed them to present the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the suffering of the population there as a result of the war that Israel has been waging there. Now, a year and 8 months into the war, it's not even a war, it's a genocide. It's an ethnic cleansing, bare minimum. You cannot possibly deny that. A year and 8 months into it, the results of a public opinion poll by the Accord Center of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem may help explain the decision to provide sparse coverage at best. Anyway, this is actually not even that bad with some of the other percentages of the other statistics and polls that have come out. There are some real bad ones. Israel, the people there are gone. Imagine MAGA being worse than they are right now, and also 80% of the population. That's what Israel's like at this immediate moment. It's insane. Now, I don't know what you think the Bible said about this country over here who has claimed the title of God's chosen people, but I can't tell you honestly that I think God would support that. I don't know. Maybe he would.
What does that even mean?
Tucker,
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Hey, where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two,
hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this.
Yeah, exactly. So Ted Cruz, he just gave us a religious justification for fighting in Iran. He gave us a religious justification for political policy that he's pushing. That is about as disturbing as it gets, honestly. A religious reason for a war that he is supporting as a sitting senator. Oh, my God.
Hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And
what does that mean?
It means the government of Israel to Ted Cruz, of course. He realizes that what he's saying is psychotic, and he's trying to backpedal and downplay it. When it's just psychotic, that's just what it is.
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what? Hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country of...
I mean, he's the one pretending that, he's the one disambiguating what Israel is. He's the one pretending it's not the country of Israel, the government that claims the title of Israel. Really?
That's like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
And so is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exists, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the descendants of Abraham.
To in Genesis, is that the same as the...
I feel like I'm missing something. Why are we talking about God when discussing a war plan?
I talked about this in another segment, but I should probably mention it in this one too. So let me just kind of lay it out. 30-second primer. If anyone didn't see the previous video, there are two subsets of the Republican movement. There is the Nazi wing, and there's the Christian nationalist wing. Tucker is from the Nazi wing, and Ted Cruz is from the Christian nationalist one. The Christian nationalist belief, the evangelical belief, is that Jesus is going to return to earth at the site of the third temple. Okay, the first temple was destroyed in the year 587 BCE. So like 2,500 years ago or something. Then they rebuilt the temple 515 BCE, and it was destroyed again in 70 CE. So about 35 years after Jesus died, it was destroyed again. It hasn't been rebuilt since. After it was destroyed, a Muslim caliphate came along and kind of populated the area. Islam really took over and built everything up, and they built a mosque on the Temple Mount site called Al-Aqsa Mosque. And the evangelical nutcases like Ted Cruz, Mike Huckabee, believe that for Jesus to return, they need to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and rebuild the third temple. And then Jesus will return at that site. However, part of that theology includes thermonuclear war. They need that to take place before Jesus can come back. So here's the theology. They think that the Great Tribulation, this like 7-year period of time where things are absolutely terrible, is going to begin when nukes are dropped on Palestine and Iran and whatever. And then Iran drops nukes on Israel, and everything is destroyed, including the Jews in the area. Then the temple is rebuilt by some number of Jews there, and then Jesus returns like 7 years later. So basically, Jesus' return necessitates thermonuclear war. There is a silver lining behind every mushroom cloud with these people. And Ted Cruz is trying to facilitate that. He's trying to speed it up. He wants thermonuclear war in Iran and Israel and everywhere else to bring Jesus back. That's what's happening. And Tucker, being a Nazi, believing that Jews are like inherently genetically evil, the way that Hitler did, generally, doesn't accept that interpretation of eschatology and wants to get rid of Jews because he thinks that they lost God's favor. So what we're dealing with here is a religious war. It's the beginning of a religious war.
Those are the two people who are talking, right? They're on two different sides, or?
Ted Cruz is a Republican senator who's absolutely out of his head drunk on...
He's a senator?
He is a senator, a federal senator, and he's insane. And Tucker Carlson...
I know Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, Tucker Carlson's just a scumbag. Anyway, Ted Cruz ran for president in 2016 against Donald Trump and took some shots at Trump, and then Trump said his wife is ugly and a bunch of other stuff. And then, just like that, when Cruz lost primary, he supported Trump all the way. He's one of those people that you can tell doesn't care about any of this, except he cares about getting more power. That's it.
That
Anyway.
seems to be a lot of people. A lot of Republicans, specifically, generally speaking.
That's true. So Ted Cruz wants thermonuclear war in the Middle East to bring Jesus back, and Tucker Carlson wants to kill all the Jews. That's the argument happening right now, basically.
Support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what? Hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
So is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
Again, Tucker said that it was in the book of Genesis. He pointed that out, that it says those who bless the nation of Israel will be blessed, or those who bless Israel will be blessed, or whatever.
Mm.
That's completely irrelevant to us today. It couldn't possibly mean less to us because the Old Testament doesn't apply anymore. Jesus fulfilled the old law when he came and died.
Mhm.
We shouldn't even have it in the Bible. People should be reading the New Testament, the Testament of Jesus Christ. The Old Testament's only there to inform people about the history. That's it, theologically. But Ted Cruz is reading it as theological expectation. Like, we don't celebrate the Sabbath. We don't eat shellfish, or we eat shellfish. We eat pork. We wear cotton and linen blends. There's no other thing that you follow from the Old Testament. Why that?
Because they like cherry picking.
Because they like cherry picking. Yes, they do. And I've said this 1,000 times, but it's impossible to not cherry pick the Bible. Any moral precept it supposes is reversed a chapter later. Anyway, let's continue.
Leadership. He's talking about the political entity called Israel.
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yet nations exists, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the
God's
descendants of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
Because it just a little bit of a history lesson. Israel was destroyed in 70 something or other. That's when the temple was destroyed anyway. And Muslim caliphate swept in, I think in 700 CE or somewhere in that vicinity, the Ottoman Empire,
Oh.
the Ottoman Caliphate. And it took over the entire region and controlled it all the way up until like 1920 something, when the British came in, turned it into a British colony. And then Mizrahi Jews, not to be confused with Ashkenazi Jews, which are predominantly in Europe, or Sephardic Jews, which are predominantly in Spain or in Russia. Mizrahi Jews from the Middle East lived in that region, Palestine. And after World War II, in 1947, 1948, they were supplied with guns and created this big... Basically, they went to war to claim this area. And the United Nations, newly formed, decided to designate certain areas as Israel, New Israel, because of what happened in World War II. Unfortunately, that means that they were carving off chunks of countries that already existed. And Israel, at that time in 1947 and today, believed that it should be an ethno-state. It should be a state designated for this one race and religion of people, and nobody else should be allowed to be in power or live there. Now, right now, they do have some Arabs that live there among them, but they're second-class citizens. It's an apartheid state. It's like the United States before 1960s or before the civil rights, when people were segregated by force, that kind of environment. Anyway, that's the history of it. Let's keep listening.
The nation
They're the descendants
God's
of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right
The answer is no, it's not. It was created in 1947.
by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes. Yes.
It is. Okay.
And by the way, it's not run by Benjamin Netanyahu as a dictator. It's a
But did he say that? Oh, that's a funny thing for you to just bring up out of nowhere.
run by Benjamin Netanyahu as a dictator. It's a
I'm not
democratic
saying he's a
country that
dictator.
elected.
He's the,
but
he's the prime minister.
right.
What?
But just like, America is the country.
Now he has to try to defend what he has to try to defend his defense.
Why did he say that? I don't understand. I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu's a dictator. He has the majority support of the coalitions. Unlike America, Israel has like a billion different political parties, and they all have to come together to elect one person that represents the most people most effectively. Like, we have two parties, they have 1,000. So
Oof.
which some would argue is a better system. But when you're in an environment where people are completely out of their heads, drunk on insanity the way that they are over there, it doesn't help anything.
America is the country run by Donald Trump. No, actually, the American people elected Donald Trump. The same principle
This is
there.
silly. I'm talking about the political entity of modern Israel.
Yes, and that is
You believe
Israel.
that's what God was talking about
Yes.
in Genesis.
I do, but
That country's existed since when?
for thousands of years.
No, since 1947, actually.
thousands of years. Now, there was a time when it didn't exist, and
Exactly, and that means it's a different thing.
Yeah, and for religious purposes, for political purposes, it's very obviously a different thing. Everybody knows it's a different thing. But Ted Cruz is trying to mix up the political entity and the religious entity. He wants to kind of confuse the two things. The fact is, it's a different political entity, obviously. And that's all that should matter for a sitting senator making decisions about when the United States is going to war.
was recreated just over 70
But
years ago.
I'm saying, I think most people understand that line in Genesis to refer to the Jewish people, God's chosen people.
That's not what it says.
It was very clearly talking about God's chosen people, first of all. And second, you notice Tucker is pointing out very clearly here that he does not believe that the Jews that are in Israel right now are God's chosen people. Emily Sigmund left a message here. I wrote about this whole time period. Was Hitler an atheist? Amazon and Audible. And Emily Sigmund says, was there an explanation as to why Hitler thought Jews were biologically evil? Yes. There's a whole underlying myth. There's a mythology. I don't know if you guys have ever heard. There are a lot of Norse gods that they believed in the Germanic area. Odin, they called him Woden, or Woden, I suppose. And a bunch of others, Thor, that were really important to German history. And some of the people that believed in like some of those old Norse Germanic myths built onto those myths with a belief that there were people that were created uniquely, that were special. They were super powerful, super intelligent, super strong, invincible. They were beautiful, blonde hair, blue eyes, and 10 feet tall.
Jesus.
And they called themselves the Aryans.
Oh.
The Germanic myth is that this specific myth wasn't necessarily like actual myth. It was created by these people in this area, but they believed that the Semites were the Aryans' mortal enemy and the exact opposite of Aryans, and that they were evil when Aryans were the pinnacle of good. You've always, in every like myth, or in many, you have good and evil battling each other. Semite is not actually a biological distinction. There is no connection between Semitic people. There is no common link between Jews or Arabs or whatever. Semite is a Nazi term, pretty much exclusively. Semite, however, is a language designation because those languages do share a common origin. So Semitic languages, Ethiopian, I think, is included. Anyway, the Semites in their theology had bad blood. And no matter what, it didn't matter how good they seemed to be at face value, they were bad in their hearts, like sinners that couldn't be redeemed. Nobody had died for them to be redeemed the way that they died for Christians, for example. So if you had Semitic blood in you, you were evil. And they determined whether you were Aryan or non-Aryan by whether you had a single grandparent who was Jewish or who went to synagogue or whatever. If you had one Jewish grandparent, I believe you could be considered Aryan, but beyond that, you were non-Aryan, if I remember correctly. Part of the Aryan paragraph of the Nuremberg laws, or part of the Aryan paragraph and part of the Nuremberg laws. I think they were written separately. Anyway, that's the history of it. That's why they believe that Jews are biologically evil. And they came up with a bunch of other pseudoscientific nonsense, like the claim that when a male mammal and a female mammal mate, the DNA from the male mammals stays in the female mammal in perpetuity, so that every offspring, the female sires, will have the DNA of the first male that she mated with. It's complete fictitious nonsense. Literally not one grain of truth to it. But the whole thing was built on emotion. And when something is built on emotion, They have to come up with fictitious reasons, fictitious excuses to believe it because they don't have any good reasons to believe it. Anyway, continue listening here.
To the Jewish people, God's chosen people.
That's not what it says.
Okay, Israel, but you don't even know where in the Bible it is.
So the point is that these people are supporting Israel to their dying breath because they want an apocalypse. That's the bottom line. Anyway, it's absolutely disturbing stuff. Holy shit. I really hope that some adult in the room talks us back from the brink. I don't know. Maybe we're already past the brink. Tell me what you think about it in the comments.